I want to welcome you all to Bee Talks. It's the second week, the second Thursday of every month, and it's right here. And you get to answer. You get to talk about your bee needs, and we get to try to answer your questions. We've got lots of resources on this. I want to say page tonight, including me and some other experienced beekeepers, which we can invite to answer questions or help augment my answers. Can. Now, Jose, would you mind bringing up ctbees.org and sharing your screen? Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming events, one of which, by the way, is next week. We have the privilege of having Kim Stoner here. Now, Kim has had a distinguished career in our own ag station in New Haven, and she will be here to talk about native pollinators. I'm sure she'll also talk about honeybees a little bit. She's a total expert on the subject. She's been studying it for decades, and she knows all about the different native pollinators that are here in Connecticut. And I think there's about 250 or so. Wonderful little bees that do extraordinary things like cellophane bees, sweat bees, all kinds of bees that we have here. Of course, all the bumblebees are all native. And so that should be a really good talk. And as soon as Jose is sharing his screen, we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the agenda.
I am sharing it. You wanted to go the events page?
Yeah, sure. We're going to, yeah.
Yep. Do you not see it?
No, I don't see it. Does anybody else see it? You guys are seeing it?
Yeah.
All right, it's probably on a different page. It's probably on a different screen for me. Hold on. Okay, I see where it is. It's hiding behind something that I have up. All right, so, all right, there it is. So, I'm trying to enlarge it a little on my side. Okay, so there you go. We have Kim Stoner coming in, as I just talked about and mentioned. And then following her, now she's on the 15th, which is next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Don't miss her. I mean, she's just somebody that we grew right here in Connecticut, and she's a total expert, and she, world known for her skills in identifying and categorizing native pollinators. Following her is Christina Grusinger. Now, Christina is a friend of mine. I've known her for many, many years. She is the current, not saying that in her title, but she directs most of the bee activities in University of Pennsylvania. She just skyrocketed right up to the top, and she is a great speaker. She's done a lot of work with pheromones, which are the chemical signatures that bees use inside colonies, and you'll learn a whole lot from her about how bee communication takes place inside of a colony. Don't miss Christina. She's a world-class speaker and a very knowledgeable person, and very nice too. And the reason she comes in December is because she has a family here, and she uses her family. She visits them, and she gives us a talk. All right, so below that, I can't see anymore. Want to scroll down a little bit? Okay, so then we have Bee School coming up in January. We have star-studded, except for myself, we have a star-studded lineup again. Dewey Karen has asked to come back and do the introduction piece with equipment and just general beekeeping skills. He's a great speaker. He'll be in Bolivia in January. We did this last year from Bolivia, and it worked flawlessly. Hopefully, same thing happens this year. Now, I'll take on some of the biology pieces and maybe the hive location. Then Randy Oliver's going to do a section in the middle about biology and general beekeeping skills. So, and then we'll finish with Mark Creighton, our bee inspector, who will give us the lowdown on all the state regulations and what he's up to this year. Now, the good part about having Mark at the end is that he gets to spend as much time as he wants talking about varroa control. which is a big topic. And you'll hear about viral control from Randy. You'll hear about it from a little bit from me, and actually a little bit from Dewey also. So that's our biggest thing. And then after that, we have Heather Matilla, another friend of mine who is a great biologist and scientist, and she will talk about giant hornets. So it should be a very interesting discussion. Now, I didn't see any of these Asian hornets when I was in Asia, but they're there. And she's another great speaker. So she leads off a lot of our national conferences. She spoke at APAMUNDA. She's a really well organized and very knowledgeable speaker. And then after that, we have Scott McCart, who is somebody that we're going to have to drill for pollinator health. You know, folks that you know, what can you do to help with pollinator health? Good question, Scott, and we'll be asking him to elaborate during that talk. And then after that, in May, not listed, I'm going to present at the Ag Station. So what we're planning on for May is our first live session where we invite people to come on a Saturday to the Ag Station, just like we used to do, and gather together as a group, try to remember everybody's name and faces from all of those years where we've been COVIDed in. And I think that's a word. And so we can go face to face again for the first time in how many years, Jose? 3?
Well, it's been February since 2020. So it'll be 3 years, more than 3 years.
3 years. And we'll, you know, we'll get there and we'll do it up. So we have some planning to do. We're thinking about an agenda and how to put that together. It's pretty simple. The reason that I'm going to be the one speaking there is because it'll ease us into this mode, this venue. Again, they're familiar with me at the Ag Station. I can offer a couple talks you haven't heard yet. And what'll be nice is that there won't be any transportation or travel expenses with me or complications for our first time out. So we want it to go smooth. All right. So that's it. That's what's coming up. If you're on this call and you're not a member, I think you are probably everybody is if you're not, but please join if you are not a member. And because we can use your support. We've got a great year planned for the bee yard. We're going to do some queen rearing in our bee yard for the first time. And I think we have some volunteers to help. We're going to start easy with swarm cells or queen cells. And we're going to, we'll divide up some colonies, split some nukes out, and raise some queens. And you'll see how that whole process can take place in your own backyard. As a matter of fact, if you come to our bee yard, and many people are, we're getting crowds of 35 and 40 at our bee yard. It's a beautiful bee yard, and you'll be able to participate at any level you want in the queen rearing piece. You can graft or use cells or whatever. So we're going to have, I think we'll have a good time next year to advance our beekeeping skills for everybody in our club that wants to learn a little bit more about the biology of bees and how queens are reared and the whole process of that. So that'll be great for us in 2023 at the bee yard. We have help over there too. We have Paul and Armando, and Jose comes around. So we got we have a lot of help. And so we'll be able to have that piece go really well. Now, let's move on to the Bloom calendar. So our Bloom calendar is very simple. I don't have to give you a spreadsheet for this one. There's only one thing out. Or as I can tell, where'd that thing go? Hold on. I'm going to share my screen if I could ever find it. Okay, let's see here. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, any guesses what that is? Michael, you can't answer, Lund.
Witch hazel.
Witch hazel, that's right, Kenneth. That's exactly right. That's witch hazel, extraordinary bloom. I have about 20 of these in my backyard. They grow like weeds. You might mistake them for, if you don't look this time of year, and not many people are going around, tramping around in the woods looking for witch hazel. But I know where these are because they're in my backyard. And here they are in bloom, and an obviously perplexing bloom habit. They're out there in November. They do need to be pollinated, and I draw pollinators, I guess, and I know bees will work them. I have not seen any of my bees on them, and they're close by. So it just gives me a little hope that there's something left for bees, because maybe like some of you, I'm seeing pollen still coming back into the colonies, not dregs, not a whole lot, but an occasional bee in every colony I have that I've looked at are dragging in a little pollen, and bright orange, look a little faded orange colors. So lots of foraging activities still way into November. Here we are, November 10th, and the bees have not stopped their activities out in the field. I'm seeing drones leave colonies in the daytime and return right around 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So there's actually drones flying in most of my colonies also. I don't know what they're trying to mate out, but they're flying. And so, I mean, I'm sure some colonies have rejected the drones already, and then some of them are probably broodless, but not any of mine. Mine are still pretty much loaded with brood, not loaded with brood, but they have some. All right, so what else is out? There is, can you see that now? Did that change?
Yep.
All right, so that's goldenrod. So there's some goldenrod that is in sheltered places. And I haven't seen bees work in this goldenrod, but I have seen sweat bees, other native pollinators, and I'm seeing yellow jackets are still working it. And right behind that is aster that's still blooming, and not prolifically blooming, but it is out there. So good year, or a funny year. Odd year, actually, for temperature-wise. We broke all kinds of high temperature readings, and it's not that we have an occasional day that popped up and we had a 70-degree day. We've had a stretch of days that are way above normal temperature-wise. The normal highs are in the 50s. We're running high 60s, low 70s, lots of days. And like after this storm, and when we get past the weekend, we're going to have days that the highs are in the high 40s, where they pretty much should be around this time of year. So that brings up some questions that I'm sure you have about what's going on in your colonies and what is happening to their resources during this time. So, and you might be even making preparations to feed your bees. I have fed all of my colonies liquid, 2-to-1 liquid syrup, as close to 2-to-1 as I could get, because I wasn't using any heat. So I would measure basically, 10 pounds of water and 20 pounds of sugar, and then stir it and get it as clear as I can. Then I fill it in 1 gallon or 2-gallon plastic bags, lay them on top of the frames, and just put slits in with a drywall knife or utility knife. Put little tiny slits in the top only. And then 2 days later, I went back and it was all gone. So they will still take down syrup. And of course, in that mode, where you're laying syrup in a plastic bag right on top of the frames, what happens is the heat from the colony keeps the syrup warm, because I have top insulation on at this point also, and they can get in there and take it. And even though there's really thin slices, like a razor slice on the top, I leave. Of course, you got to be careful when you're doing this so you don't score the bottom. because if you score the bottom, you'll leak syrup through the colony. But it's very easy to do. Nice sharp razor knife, and you can make these nice little slits, and the bees will come up. But even with those slits, bees get in the bag. How they get in that bag, I don't know, but they do. And I removed them, and they were totally dry. So interesting way to feed this time of year if you want to get a gallon of syrup in your bees real quick. And or you can do what Lauren is doing. And Lauren, maybe you want to just start off by talking about what you're doing. Do you mind?
No, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So
Stop sharing.
I use the condensing hives that Bill published in the article a few years ago. So the inner cover is it's like a shim that has, and I just put sugar in it, so I can't really show you, but I'll try. It's a shim with, I think 8th inch hardware cloth, and I'm filling that shim with sugar cake. And I've done this every year. It's the lid is insulated, and then the sugar can also absorb some moisture if there's, a need to. I don't use ventilation. And historically, I would do it a little later. This year, I sort of thought I was getting the bees tucked in a little bit earlier. And like on a fluke, I took a lid off and saw that they had eaten almost all of the sugar. And it's the entire inner cover. And it's, I don't know, what is it, an inch or so. It's a lot. It's like 20, 30 pounds, no, 20 pounds maybe of sugar. And typically they wouldn't, like in March, there would be some gone. And all 8 of my hives have plowed through it, which is so, it's baffling to me. So I don't know if speculated that maybe because it's been so warm, they haven't been in the type of sort of torpor that you would expect this time of year. And that's why they were eating it. I mean, they have plenty of honey. And I always feel like I'm feeding them so that I'll feel better. That is why I feed them. But I mean, they have really, every single one of them have plowed through these sugar cakes. So I'm baffled.
Okay, so does anyone want to help answer Lauren's question? We had a little discussion before the actual group started. Anybody have any ideas? Kevin, are you feeding Kevin McDonald, are you feeding this time of year?
I stopped around the middle of October. I went maybe a little bit longer because I'm in southern Maine.
Yeah.
And I've been weighing the hives, and I see that they're getting lighter all the time. So they're still active. Yeah, they're still active. They're still moving. And so I didn't put sugar boards on the condensing hives last year, but I just made them all, and I'm going to put them on this year.
All right. So it's a mystery, but I think that it's a mystery. Lauren's question is, are the bees, because it's sort of baffling to her. Are the bees eating this stuff? Or is it, what are some of the ways that Lauren can tell if the bees are eating the sugar cake she made in her kitchen? Well, one of them is that look on your bottom board. All right, so if you scrape your bottom board out and you find piles of sugar on it, are you running screen bottom boards, Lauren?
I have screened bottom boards with, the catcher below it.
Have you looked at that?
Yes, and there is sugar on it, but it's not piles. Although the yellow jackets have been like just really enjoying it. I'm seeing the yellow jackets not going in, not robbing, but in those, eating off of those bottom boards. So maybe there was a whole lot more, and the yellow jackets are, on cleanup duty.
Yes, so that's one possibility. Like that, they will take away a lot of sugar, in a small amount of time if you let them. I mean, they'll eat anything, any kind of sugar that you're putting out in the yard these days. So I don't think, what's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing I'm wondering about is, did you let that sugar cake set up? I mean, in other words, the way I've been sort of taught is if I mix it up and put it in the thing, to leave it out, let it start absorbing moisture, not even in the hive till it becomes rock hard. Then put that in the hive. Because if I put it in with sugar and expect that to start to activate with their moisture, you know, you may have more granulated sugar than you have set up sugar that they're going after.
No,
I
made all of the boards and I let them sit out for probably, they were out for like 8 days, 9 days. Yeah. So they were really, really hard.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not that matters much, but that's one thing. All right, so I think the jury's still out on you, Lauren.
I'll go in the hives. I'll check the weather and go in this weekend. I haven't gone in because I thought I had them all tucked in and
yeah,
it's not disturbing them, but I'm going to go into them and see what I see.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there's no evidence of sugar on the ground or around your colonies, and there's a minimum amount on the bottom board, and there's always going to be, if you put sugar cakes on a colony, there'll always be some sugar on the bottom board, but it won't be a lot. You know, they'll just be a light coating, because not every crystal that they dislodge do they end up consuming, right? Yeah. So that's the only way you can tell. Sometimes, as I mentioned, bees look at granulated sugar as a foreign substance and just take it out of the colony. But in that case, you see it on the landing board. And Jose talked about that earlier. You normally will see evidence that they're throwing away your sugar. It's pretty much obvious. So I think we're going to lean toward that they're using it.
Would they eat that before they ate their honey stores?
Well, their honey stores require that they use water to uncap them and thin them out, right? So, and if they're up against that sugar cake, they just might.
Yeah.
Plus, you have other things in there, right? You put in pollen, and you put what else in there? You put in honey.
Probably
honey,
oil. Did you put oil in there?
Oil? No.
No, you put in some.
You mentioned that you followed Bill's recipe for the sugar cake.
Yeah, which is 4.5. Well, for the fortified, which is 4.5 pounds of sugar and 1/2 pound of the
that stuff.
Pollen. Yeah, and 6 ounces of water.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
To make
what Jose is referencing is that. So this is old new. This is new. Actually, it's in that recipe. At the time I wrote that recipe, the actual scientific literature indicated that bees cannot make a cholesterol that they need. And we hung on to that. I mean, you can read that all over the websites that have done any studies on bees. There was a sort of molecular anomaly that the scientists thought bees could not make their own cholesterol like we do. And but turns out that some of the latest research indicates at this point that bees can actually make their own cholesterol. So in that recipe, there was an option that if you wanted to add some lipids to that mixture, you could add a little bit of oil, but it's a tiny bit, like a teaspoon or so, or a tablespoon or so, or you could substitute some of the liquid for oil. But you don't need to do that now, so I need to change that, update that recipe and change it because, guys like Randy Oliver backed off on that subject in his scientific beekeeping piece. A number of prominent scientists have now turned the corner on that and agree that the metabolism for bees allow them to make their own lipids.
I do not remember seeing anything in that recipe about oil.
Yeah. You might, maybe you didn't get the enhanced one.
I got it was the regular one or the fortified one, and I made half of it fortified with the pollen.
It's
and
towards
half
the bottom.
Oh, okay.
It's towards the bottom. But Lauren, did I hear you correctly earlier that you've made 20 pounds, you put 20 pounds of sugar in each hive?
I think that was an overestimation. So I think
seemed like
that,
a lot.
Yeah, I think I put as much as these would hold. Whoops. these, and it's yeah, no, it's probably more like 10 really, because
Yeah, okay.
5 pounds just almost filled 2 channels. Yeah, so no, I don't know. I was exaggerating.
Okay.
I think maybe it's 5 or 7 pounds. I just filled it completely.
All right, sugar cakes. Great way to feed bees in the wintertime. So we're going to move over to now the things you shouldn't feed bees, in my opinion, in the wintertime, and that is fondant. First of all, I don't think it's, unless fondant is manufactured enzymatically, which it can be, like some of the commercial fondants are inverted, from sucrose to the combination that allows a softball candy to develop. But that for us, backyard beekeepers, all the recipes for fondant call for very high heat, like 230 degrees, heating on your stove, whipping it into a super hard candy, which is what it ends up being by the end of the year. It's softball temperatures, but when you pour it out on baking sheets, it hardens like a rock. The problem with it is, in my opinion, is that all of that heat for that temperature, the 230 degrees or whatever it is you need to do to get sugar up to that temperature, to get to get to that softball temperature, produces a chemical called, I'm going to shorten it, it's HMF. It is toxic to bees. There's plenty of incidents where commercial beekeepers would keep their high fructose corn syrup in black containers out in fields. The heat would build up, and they learned early in the use of high fructose corn syrup that they could kill their bees with this chemical that develops with heat and time. So it's much easier to make a sugar cake, right, Lauren, than it is to
Very easy. Sorry, very easy.
Right. Then you got all of that hot sugar to deal with. So I see no reason to make fondant as a backyard beekeeper when they will gladly take granulated sugar from you if they need it. And granulated sugar, of course, they eat it, and then they already have invertase in their salivary system, which splits the molecule into fructose and glucose, and it makes it available for them to digest or feed to other bees or feed to the queen. So they can handle sucrose just as easily as they can inverted sugar. There's no reason for us to do the job to invert sugar for bees. They're capable of it biologically.
So Bill, do they need water for that, like they need water when they consume the honey?
Yes. Yep, they need water for it. But water is abundant right now, and it will be in your colony, assuming that you don't spend a lot of time ventilating it and drying out the insides of the colony. Then there's plenty of moisture around for bees. So yeah, so it's available to them, Jose, if they need it. And bees in cluster, the bees on the outside of the cluster in the mantle area have plenty of moisture around them and in them. The bees in the center are dry and they change places. So if they're going to consume some of that sugar, they have plenty of moisture, metabolic moisture, that they can recover from their body to digest granulated sugars. All right, what do we got in the chat? The chat's got a little bit of action in it. Nothing?
And no, just one question that Lynn is asking. Why not divert sugar instead of a sugar block?
I don't understand that question.
I'm not sure she heard you when you were talking about the different types of sugars.
Yeah, I think she meant invert sugar. I just explained why. In my opinion, why you shouldn't do that. Because it puts a small amount of toxic material inside the colony during the wintertime.
Lynn, you could unmute yourself and expound on your question.
it's your time to ask questions. Ralph, you're here. What do you have? Ralph, I thought I saw Ralph Zor somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here.
What are you doing? Are you in Connecticut or are you in California?
I'm in New York still.
Oh, all right, that's right. You're in New York. That's right.
Yep.
All right, cool. What are you doing for feeding this time of year, Ralph? What do you?
Nothing yet. And when I get ready to leave for California, I will make sugar cakes.
Okay. And
They seem to do quite well, and everything is. I've got good honey supplies in the hives, and I've put a couple of hives have shallows on them, which are full of capped honey.
Full capped honey, yeah. Okay, that's good. My bees went through a bunch of honey this year. From the time that I left when they were led till now, they've used some honey. You know, so they went backward a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of folks have gone backward a little bit. Mike, what are you seeing?
At the Backyard Beekeepers bee yard, I've seen an awful lot of robbing. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't been there for a couple of weeks, so with the warm weather, I hope they didn't get taken out.
Yeah, I guess they could have. Yeah.
And I also saw the bee yard mite counts go from 1 and 0 up to 15 and 35 in less than a month.
Yeah, that's that typical unexplainable rise we get in mites this time of year. It's not unexplainable.
It's robbing and drifting.
Yeah, it's robbing and also bees coming out of brood. I mean, Varroa coming out of brood, which also contributes to that problem this time of year. And but it's alarming to see. I mean, here you go. You have you're under threshold all year long. You look at your drops at this point, and you're seeing these big mite counts. And so that's why we need a harmless, organic miticide that we could use this time of year, that we could put in our colony and let it sit and lay in there from, say, the beginning of November or late October all the way till whenever, December or January, and then have it work on that mite population as it accumulates from wherever it accumulates from. Now, if your colonies are strong, I wanted to clear up this notion about robber screens. For robber screens, if you put robber screens on a strong colony, it doesn't do anything about your bees not getting a high mite count, because if they're robbing other colonies, they're bringing back mites. It's the colony that actually needs the robber screen is the weak colony that is somewhere where you don't know. And that's the one that really would benefit your bees. If your bees are going out and robbing, it's the weak colonies that need the robber screens. And I guess like what Michael saw that robbing at the yard, if you put robber screens on, it might do something to stop that.
Actually, I've seen the robber screens overwhelmed and
if they're gone, they're going to do they're going to do damage. So but just so you know about what I'm trying to explain about robber screens, they benefit your colony when they are on your strong colonies, when those robber screens are on the weak ones that are no longer able to be robbed by your bees. All right, so if you can go around to your neighborhood and stick robber screens on the colonies that are weak in your area, you'll do yourself some good on the robbing piece. All right, now if your yard is robbing, we have let's see, we have 8 colonies in our new yard in Cheshire, and no one has been able to rob any other hive in there because it wasn't only me, but the treatment piece and that we did this year with Formic Pro and oxalic acid. And we're doing another treatment pretty soon, has kept all of the colonies about equal strength. So no one's robbing in that yard. Now, it's not usual to have that, because I agree with Michael's observations. Usually in a bee yard where hives are in close proximity, you see some robbing this time of year. The weak ones are getting robbed. All right, so I just wanted to touch base a little bit on Formic Pro before I leave that subject. There are instances with Formic Pro, because we've gotten these questions during the year, and also now it's a little bit too late to use Formic Pro, but Formic Pro is a formic acid that has been formulated to allow it to last longer on the shelf. The problem with the first formic acid problem that came out, Mite-Away Quick Strips, is that the medium that was supposed to fumigate or sublimate the formic acid would do so even when it was in the package. So what happened is the formic acid would leak out of that pad and end up being, you could see it. It was instead of having a solid pad, you had a orange brown juice all around the pad. And that pad, if you use that pad, then you would release all the formic acid all at once. It's like a flash treatment, right? So it wasn't any good. And anyway, so when people saw that, they got rid of the pads, or they ran into problems by flashing a bunch of formic acid on their colony. So the solution to that, NOD, the manufacturer of the formic acid pad piece, came up with Formic Pro, and Formic Pro has a different way that it's releasing formic acid from the applicator or the pad. And it does it, by the way, somehow they managed to get away from the problem of it aging out really quickly. So it has like a 2-year shelf life, which is good for us as backyard beekeepers, because we might not use even a 5 colony treatment pack in a year. So we don't want to throw all that money away every year and with aged out pads. So it's good for us in some ways, but it has unequal or undependable results. So what I'm beginning to hear from other parts of the country and from folks even around here is, hey, I put Formic Pro on and it didn't work. And that never used to be the case with Mite-Away Quick Strips, by the way, because they were just brutal. I mean, you put those on and in 3 days, they outgassed all the formic acid in the colony. Now, that doesn't happen with Formic Pro. Formic Pro is a 10-day treatment, and it's a slower release. As a matter of fact, you can put a half dose on at 10-day intervals and get a 20-day release, or you can put the full dose on, which is 2 pads all at once, and and you can put them on for 14 days. So it's a longer interval and a slower outgassing of formic acid. And it turns out that we don't know why, but it might be some colonies are better at being able to ventilate that colony and move the gas around so that it doesn't kill the mites under the caps. So that's where we're at. For the most part, it works fine, but there will be occasions where you're going to use a product like that, Formic Pro, and you might not get the results you expect. Now, which brings up the point that you can't trust any application of anything that you use to control mites, because you always have to test afterward. Right? So you have to evaluate the efficacy of your efforts. That's paramount importance. So that's what I wanted to update you about Formic Pro, because when I began to hear those reports, I doubted that people were applying it correctly, with the temperature and gradients and all of that. But now I'm hearing other fairly informed beekeepers that have been using it for quite a while talking about sporadic results. So cool. That's the Formic Pro update. All right, what else do we got?
So Yellow Jackets, and I know that Lauren has her hand up. Give me 1 minute, Lauren. But Yellow Jackets are a popular discussion. I mean, Lauren raised that earlier, and Kathy has a couple of questions about that. She's got she lost one hive that was weak to Yellow Jackets. She's got a strong hive that's got Yellow Jackets going in and out. What is your how do you suggest people deal with Yellow Jackets at this time of the year?
Well, if there's Yellow Jackets going in and out of a colony, it's not a strong colony, because a very strong colony will not let them in. All right, so the Yellow Jackets that are going into colonies this year are looking for protein. They may run away with carbohydrates, but they're mostly looking for protein, or anything they can find in there, because they got to bring that back and feed that to their young. So they're still brood rearing, I guess. Most of them still are. Yeah, so you could put a robber screen on the same way as you do for bees. You put a robber screen, make one. There's plenty of plants out there. If you have a little hardware cloth, number 8 hardware cloth, like Lauren was talking about earlier, that she uses for her screen, for her feeding shim. That number 8 hardware cloth is something that you can just bend into a little bit of patience and some plans off the internet. You can make a robber screen in 10 minutes in your garage or wood shop, and you'll have one that you can put on your colony, and it will work fine. Otherwise, you can get them from any of the supply houses. Be Smart has a great one that I think works wonderful, and you can pin that right on the front of your colony, and that's the end of the robbing piece for that. So the only thing I think you can do about Yellow Jackets at this point is to put robber screens on. Now, it's a warning sign if a lot of Yellow Jackets are going in and out of a colony. I would look inside that colony, because something's going on, which is allowing them free access to that colony. And they will take a lot with them before they go. So got to get control of that stuff. So what do we got? Any issues with adding a sugar board to a condensing colonies? I can't see any reason why not, either me. That I agree with that. Some recipes call for corn sugar. How is that different? It's made corn sugar. How's it different? It's made from corn sugar. It's high fructose corn sugar. That's what it mostly is, I'm guessing. So we use 2 kinds of sugar to feed our bees. We use we use beet and cane sugar. Those are the only 2 options that I would recommend. Corn sugar is fructose, and I wouldn't give that to bees, not because that is highly manipulated, goes through many, many processes, and not some recipes. I guess she's talking about recipes for sugar cakes. No reason to use corn sugar in sugar cakes. All right, Peter. Has anyone lost a hive this fall? Well, he's asking that question. Has anybody lost other robbing Yellow Jackets? White-faced hornets, man, they don't usually go inside colonies. But if you find them in there, yeah, that colony's toast. That's for sure. Them there are going in there just for protein. They will take a sip of honey now and then, but they're after bee bodies and parts, same as Yellow Jackets are. Safe to prophylactically do mite treatments at this time of year prophylactically? Yeah, it is safe if you can get a, that's from Sylvia. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been worried about not being able to test. I'm not risking testing given the temperatures at some point. So, I mean, is it okay? I don't know if there's any kind of downside to just treating them at this point.
Well, what you would treat them with at this point, assuming that they're broodless or coming on to broodlessness, is formic acid, is oxalic acid in some form.
Okay.
Unless you can get something that's really low temperature that will sublimate. I'm going to ask Ralph if we're below the thymol threshold at this point for temperature? What's the low temperature on thymol? Ralph, do you know offhand?
Oh, I think it's about 50, 55.
Yeah, so you're
Light
getting,
VAR wafers.
Okay. So stick with oxalic.
and so what you can do is a dribble.
Yep.
Okay. which you don't have to have a lot.
So
of
even if I crack it open, I mean, I am not sure. No.
Yeah, no, won't be a problem.
Okay.
Warm the syrup up. The only legal way that you can use oxalic acid in a dribble this for us is to use it with sugar water.
Yep.
That's the only legal formula. I would never suggest that you try doing it with glycol. I'd never say that because that would be illegal to do, and I wouldn't want to tell you anything illegal to try because with glycol, they won't eat it. We don't really know what dribbling oxalic acid does to the microbiome of bees. It can't be good if they're eating it, but the real salvation in the dribbling of oxalic acid will be when the EPA wakes up and allows us as beekeepers to use the tools we have available to us that are safer for bees and for people, actually. And glycol is going to be one of the, humectants that we're going to use going forward, I think, in our time-release oxalic acid and for dribbling on bees. So don't try that because it's not legal.
Okay.
So what else we got there?
Well, when is the optimal time to do a final oxalic vapor treatment for the year?
I would say, well, I would have said you probably could get away with it in a couple of weeks, but that ain't what my brood is telling me. So, the optimal time for you to do an oxalic acid treatment is when your colony is broodless or very close to it, very small patch of brood somewhere. Because that's the time when oxalic acid in both forms, dribble and vapor, is effective. If you try it in any other time when there's brood, you get bad results. It just doesn't work. It won't harm the bees. Well, the dribble will. You can only use dribble once. You can fumigate them every day of the week for every as long as you want. It won't hurt the bees. For some reason, oxalic acid crystals that are they call it sublimation, but it's really vaporizing. Oh no, it's actually, they call it vaporizing, but it's really sublimation. It's a different gaseous conversion from a solid right to a gas. So you can't harm the bees by doing that, but it won't be effective unless there's no brood. So you have to watch your colony, see when it's broodless, and then you can use, down to 50 degrees or so, a dribble is no problem for bees. And I know folks that regularly dribble even in the 40s. So you can do that. I wouldn't recommend you do that often, but you do it once, on like a nice warm day in late November or early December, and you can do that. Right? But the key is, again, I can't emphasize this enough, colony has to be broodless for that to work.
Yeah, and if not, they're going to have to do what Kevin is asking about in the next question about standard protocol for vaporization, how many treatments, how many days apart. But just a quick aside about the vaporization and whatnot. I mean, you could really do it at whatever time of the year you want. It's just that also, if you've got a very tight cluster, your efficiency is just going to be reduced because the bees are not spread out.
Yeah, well, the vaporization itself forms the colony to the extent that they do move a little bit. So even if they're in tight cluster, it gets in. But I agree completely. You don't want to wait till it's very, very cold. But there's always an opportunity in December when the daytime temperature is 50 degrees or so like that. That's your shot at it.
Right.
If you wait till after the winter solstice, then you're going to start to get a little bit of brood in that colony. Won't mean much, But then January, you're going to lose your opportunities because it'll be way too cold for you to do that. So you got to get it the sweet spot is broodlessness sometime at the end of November, maybe early December, mid-December latest. But that's when, forget about that sequenced treatments, Kevin, if you're thinking that will work. We don't get good results with it. That's all I'm saying. You can do it. It won't hurt your bees, but we don't get the kind of results we want with it.
Yeah, the reason for it, right now it's a little bit warmer, so they're not as clustered. And if you do it at, 3 times 5 days apart, you should capture any bees that, are capped at this point, over by doing 15 days total, you capture all the bees that would have been capped at some point, right?
Well, it sounds good. And it sounded good to a lot of people that tried it. I'm just telling you that the results aren't there for that.
Is that right?
Yeah, you can do it. And I know some beekeepers in Maine and in Vermont that swear by it. So go ahead. If it works for you, try it. But if you've got a lot of brood, it won't work. But it might work if in that period, right, that 15-day period, if what you're saying is the queen has stopped laying and you're looking at your brood and you're saying in 15 days or sometime in that interval, it'll all have emerged, then yes, then I agree. At that point, that's a pretty tricky timing thing to get your head around, but it will work then. Kevin, that would work.
Yeah, and this time of year, there's even if you do have brood, it's going to be much lower numbers of brood.
And so what I hear you're saying is, and I agree again, is that you're probably going to get a higher mite kill, and you only have a little bit of brood, and maybe your bees will be okay with the mites that are hiding in that brood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can always get it. You can always do it. Again, at some point in the winter, if you can get a day or a couple days, there's a forecast of the weather's going over 50. We always get a January thaw. You can try it then too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
What else we got there, Jose?
Well, let's see. Scrolling down here, Ralph is saying that the instructions for Api-Life bar thymol say it's far less effective below 59 degrees.
Okay. Yeah.
What's the recipe for mixing oxalic acid with sugar water?
Oh, what that in?
Well, you gotta use the instructions on the label. All right, so let's see something here. What? Okay.
Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that there's a lot of people seeing that the authorized legal
doses 1 gram per
really effective.
Yeah. So is that you, Ralph? That's you.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Let's I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But anyway, I'm just trying to get the oxalic acid label.
Well,
oh, there it is. Hold on, I got it.
35 milligrams for every.
Let me share it, because I want to make a point, and then Ralph, don't let me get away from your question. All right.
Okay.
Let me see if I can share this screen. Wait, I can't share that screen. Yes, I can. The view. Hold on. Let me see this thing here. All right. Almost doing it. Okay, you should be able to see that now, right? Can you?
Yes, we see that.
Is it big or is it really tiny?
It's big.
Okay. All right, so you can see over here, this is the label, and this is the one that you can use. This is not the latest label. The latest label, I think, has been modified. I know it's been modified. and then it allows you to use oxalic acid with your honey superzon. And where does it say about do not use when honey superzon are in place to prevent contamination of marketable honey? That's off the label at this point. But they give you, why don't they give you, hold on, this is page 1. Okay, here's page 2, which are the instructions. So there's the methods, all right? The vaporizer, spray package, and it tells you exactly what to do. Mix.
35 grams to a liter of water.
Oxalic, right, 1 liter
1 to 1.
Yeah, 1 to 1 by weight. All right, so it's simple, it's right out there. But now remember, the label's the law. You cannot do anything other than what is on the label. Now, the vapor method. Smoke bees up to the board, place 2 grams of oxalic acid powder into vaporizer. Follow vaporizer manufacturers for use and through the vapor on the bottom of the entrance. All right, so what has happened is somebody I traveled to Thailand with this spring is Cameron Jack. He's a great, in addition to being a wonderful scientist, he's a great travel companion also. And he's an entomologist out of University of Florida. And his recent work on oxalic acid and the labels constraints he's challenging the EPA and saying that the amount of oxalic acid, 2 grams, that would be 1 gram per box. So if you have a double deep configuration, you get 1 gram of dosage per box. He thinks it's about 4 to 6 times low for efficacy. So getting back to Kevin's talk about doing a vaporization, if you follow the label, you get results that Cameron Jack has a application license, found in his study that just doesn't give you the kind of bang you need with oxalic acid, and he thinks you're likely to need more like 6 grams of oxalic acid in a vaporization. So keep that in mind.
Can I ask a question about that, Bill?
Sure.
Now, we don't want to break the law. We're going to follow the recommendation.
Thank you.
But is what that researcher saying
Cameron,
that
you mean Cameron? Yeah,
that higher dose has better efficacy in his research and it's not harmful to the bees?
Yes. He said both of those things.
Okay.
Now,
at one time, 6 grams at one time.
Yes.
And would that, if you
talk about vaporizing now.
Right, I'm talking about vaporizing. Yeah. So if you have a standard Verox that the little cup holds about 2 grams, 2 of the little measuring spoons.
Oh, you can put a lot more in that little cup, Lauren.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know, but I wouldn't because it's not the law.
You wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't. Okay. Got it. Thank you very, very much.
Don't do that. Okay. All right. So Lynn, you're going to have to explain Dryvert. Where's Lynn? Come on, Lynn, talk to me.
I'm trying. Okay. So Dryvert, instead of, because by the time you're making syrup, I mean, I have a very small kitchen and I'm schlepping gallons of water and hot water and 20-pound bags of sugar and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God.
You can kill your cat too. If you knocked it off the stove, you can kill your cat. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I can trip down a 2-story house holding all this stuff down the front of my house, down the side of my house, into the backyard.
It'd be a disaster.
It's crazy. So I am, as you can see from my Golden Gate Bridge background, I'm in San Francisco. So the club here, they're saying use Dryvert sugar because you can just, you can go in and I've got a deep inner cover, Better Bee, my friends at Better Bee. And I just go in, I put a Hive Live fondant packet in there, which they cook. and I just poured around 3 cups of sugar. I looked at them today. They were looking like little bears in a winter wonderland. Those bees were happy. They were taking the dry root. So I was just saying, why not dry root sugar instead of cooking and the labor and buckets and water? And that was why.
Yeah.
That's all I was going towards.
Well, Lynn, I just want to challenge you a little bit because what do you know about a white Christmas like you just described? I mean, you're out in California. I mean, that,
I know. We have Tahoe here.
that's all reserved for the winter wonderland. That's reserved for the East Coast over there. Why don't you come out and visit us? We'll show you what anyway, so Dryvert, somebody look that up. Tell me what Dryvert is. You know, like, I don't know what that is. Is that a special sugar?
Exactly. It is. It's a dry fondant sugar, but you're not cooking it. You're just pouring it in there like loose sugar.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did
that's
they
all
cook?
I'm doing. I'm like,
Did they
easy.
cook it to make it though?
I don't know that's a good question. Did they cook it to make it? It's sugar. Dryvert is baker's sugar, AK fondant base. There you go. Charles is way ahead of me.
Okay, Charles.
It's a baker. I know it's some sort of baker's sugar, but to the detail that you're asking, I don't know.
So what I never can get out of bakers is I always ask them this question, you know, what's going into your fondant? You know, they'll tell you that it's enzyme based. And of course, you know, a company that's putting out tons of fondant isn't going to make fires in the backyard and cook it like crazy. I mean, if they can do it with an enzyme, and it can be done with invertase, if it can be done, if they can do it on the facility, then they're not using heat, they're not making that molecule. A lot of fondant has, unfortunately, powdered sugar in it, and powdered sugar has cornmeal in it. And so folks don't want to put a lot of solid matter into their colonies in the wintertime, because then their colonies need more cleansing flights. Won't hurt them, won't kill them, but you know, but that's just what it is. So I like the idea. If Dryvert is actually a sugar that's legal to sell on the East Coast, probably not. You know, but in California, you can probably sell that. Right?
It's made by C&H. I mean, you guys are not that far away. Don't you have C&H sugar there?
No, that's only goes to the West Coast. That's, you know what that is?
Really?
C&H, California and Hawaii.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
That's no, we don't have C&H. No. We have.
No? That's hilarious. Okay. Well, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah. So I first saw those factories in Hawaii in the 80s. It's amazing stuff. Anyway. All right. So we got to figure out more about that. But that would mean, let's say, for instance, that Dryvert was an actual inverted sugar. And that's what you do when you make fondant. You invert it, meaning that you take it and separate the sucrose molecule into glucose and fructose. That's what it is. So inverted sugar, or Dryvert, is obviously, they've made a fondant that's real hard, then ground it back down or milled it back down into a sugar. All right, so kind of cool. And then what that would do is it would save bees the step of having to convert it.
Ah, very interesting.
But as I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's necessary. Bees are probably going to do it. But I want to congratulate you into that you have seen your ways on with a bunch of water and heat, and you don't want to. You're on the second floor?
I've got a 2-story house, so of course all my stuff's in my backyard, right? My kitchen's upstairs. Yeah, that's the way we set up here. Yeah. So yeah, okay. You're not going to be a 5-gallon bucket full of stuff up and down the stairs. It's crazy.
No, that's 80 pounds. You can't do
that.
Now exactly. Ralph is out in California too.
I know he's here somewhere, but I think what'd he say? He's in New York now.
I'm in Richmond.
Oh, Richmond. Okay, I'm down by SFO.
So are you far away from Ralph?
Just across the bay.
You're an hour. Yeah, you're an hour. Exactly.
Okay, that's far enough. I mean, now you're safe.
That's good.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Okay, what else we got here?
So Peter wants to. Yeah, come on, you gotta get with the program here.
I know.
Peter wants to know, since he's going to be away for a while, do Nuke suppliers take orders now and allow cancellations before pickup? I'd be willing to leave a non-refundable deposit.
And to clarify, I'm not going to be away. I just don't know. I have two colonies. If one or both of them don't make it, and like in February, usually you can't get a Nuke. So I was thinking I'd be willing to put a deposit down now and lose that deposit but have that insurance policy.
Yeah, so I think you should go to our friend up there in Massachusetts. What do you think?
I think so. His Nukes have been terrific, and they're actually pretty reasonably priced, and you don't have to order as early as February to get those, and that's New England apiaries.
So take that down, Peter. That's going to be our recommendation for Nukes going forward, actually also for his bees. And because he is a very responsible vendor. That's where his strength is. I'm not saying that, I know he selects and does everything he can to make certain that the bees he delivers to his customers are healthy and clean, but things happen, diseases and mites get involved, but he's a very, very responsible vendor. And I like his operation. It's very clean. I know that Jose likes his operation also. We've been up there a few times, and he knows what he's doing. So he would be the person that you should ask that question to.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Recommendation on how to ship honey to South Africa. Jeff, really? Wow.
Yes, I was there this summer. I had a great trip. And
were you down in the Cape?
We're not in the Cape. We were in Johannesburg. For this part, we had a couple tours in Johannesburg, Soweto, and Alexandra. Harry gave us a great tour, and we brought up beekeeping, and he said, they don't have a lot of honey here in South Africa, I guess, in Johannesburg, and he was very interested in trying my honey. But I've been Googling a little bit of shipping it, and I'm a little confused about how to do it. But I know you've been to Africa several times, so do you have any recommendations on
DHL?
How to ship it?
Just send it over DHL. You'll get it like it was a regular parcel.
Okay.
Pack it real good. You're going to have to make sure it's in styrofoam or some kind of a packing material, and then ship it to them via DHL. And DHL is a worldwide distributor. No problem. I just brought back some olive oil and balsamic vinegar and wine from Italy via DHL. I got it in 9 days. So you can do it.
Great. Thank you.
All right. What else we got here?
Scrolling through here.
There's some tough questions on here. Like, we don't know the answer to that, Donald. Sorry. What percentage of phoretic mites? Well, phoretics, we're calling them dispersals now. So terminology is everything. And so we really do need to try to keep up with it. I still use the term phoretic, but we refer to mites as inside cells or in the dispersal mode, which is when they're outside cells. So how many are killed with higher doses? Look at Cameron Jack's paper. So search that paper out. No, Donald, if you can't get that paper.
The link is in the chat, Bill.
Oh, the link for Cameron's, it's in the chat?
Yeah.
Who put that in there? Thank you so much.
Charles.
Thank you so much. That's great. So, and then if you want, we're going to have Cameron Jack speak to us, but he won't be here. He's going to stay with me here in Connecticut at my house, and he'll speak to us about his research, but it's not going to be till fall. All right. But look forward to that. But, anytime that we want him, we could get him on a Bee Talk even and have him explain his research. But I'd rather have him do a whole presentation about it. All right. What else we have here? Diver is baker sugar, aka fondant base. Okay. Okay. All right. I don't use it either. Thank you. What else we got? What else we got there, Jose?
So Peter wants to know if anyone's used a propane or electric insect fogger to apply oxalic acid.
Don't do it, Peter.
Well, I know it was something I saw on the internet.
Oh,
And I put parentheses,
Peter,
that's my
now
bad.
wait a minute. You know better than to say that.
I know, I shouldn't have even put that there.
oh man, Peter. No, that's no. So we've been all through this with the insect fogger stuff and all that. The problem with those are that the temperature piece of it has to be fairly precise. So a Verox and a ProVap 110 are both designed, one better than the other, by the way, to heat the little vessel that you put the oxalic acid crystals in to a certain temperature. The Verox leaves it up to you with time and resistance. So there's a certain amount of resistance built into the coils that go around the little cup in the Verox. So it only gets to a certain temperature. Now, the chemistry around the vaporization of oxalic acid is very precise. So the first thing that happens is as it begins to heat, it loses its moisture. It's dehydrate, oxalic acid dehydrate, which means it has a water molecule attached to it. The first thing you see as it begins to gain in temperature is that the water begins to evaporate off of the formula, off the cup. And a lot of people think at that point, it's actually turning into oxalic acid crystals, but it isn't. That's just water vapor. The next stage you don't actually see because then it gets really hot. And then what's left after all the moisture goes off the oxalic acid crystals that are in your cup, your vessel, is it sublimates. It goes directly from a solid to a vapor. And that's where it becomes formic acid again. So you first get moisture, steam off of it, and then formic acid. Now, if you don't have the right temperature profile in your heating mechanism, there's no telling what you get. You could get nothing. You could get just steam. You could get formic acid, who knows? You could get all, you could get oxalic acid crystals, it could work. You can also get formic acid out of oxalic acid if you heat it at the wrong temperature, which some people say, well, that wouldn't be so bad, but it's not the way you should do it. You want to get oxalic acid crystals because we know that oxalic acid crystals are what kill Varroa. Now, with the ProVap 110, the device I use, it has a little computer attached to it, and you heat it up to a certain temperature, and then you flip it over and it actually dispenses the oxalic acid crystals into the vaporization cup, and away you go. And then that controls the temperature precisely. You get oxalic acid crystals at that point, and then you can just go on to the next colony. So if you're using anything like an insect fogger or anything like that, you have no idea what you're doing. And it can get high vapor pressure and temperatures, as you say, and kill your bees. So that's a downside, in my opinion. What else?
It was really a cost thing. I mean, because I understand what you're talking about, but that product is, I think, like $500 or something. So
the ProVap,
the dribble.
The ProVap.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But you can borrow mine, of course.
Okay, thank you. I'll stay with the dribble for this winter anyway, but I'll look at different options.
Yeah. Well, a Verox doesn't cost $500. A Verox is, I don't know what did they cost now, Lauren? Did you just buy one, or did you have?
I have a Verox and a ProVap. I have both of them.
Okay.
And I like using the Verox better because at one point you weren't sure that that faster vaporization was good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not sure, and but I do get high drops, so that's what I always look at. And I think
So-
I want to encourage everybody to do that same thing. If you're going to use anything like a dribble this fall, or you're going to vaporize oxalic acid with a Verox vaporizer or a ProVap 110, you got to put a drop board, sticky board under that colony when you do your vaporization, so you can see if you're killing mites.
So the thing that I didn't like or don't like very much about the ProVap is that I drilled that little hole in the back of the
in the middle?
hive.
In the bottom board.
In the bottom
Rim.
yeah.
There's
And
3/4 of an inch there.
Yeah, and I put a golf tee in it, but when I have the condensing hive on it, like I have to lift it up. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
not as convenient as the front entrance in the winter.
Yeah, and then you can use the ProVap with a longer tube in the wintertime in the front entrance. You can
Oh,
extend-
really? Is
you
that
can-
something is that a part you can buy? Because I would buy that part.
Well, I just stuck it on mine. I found one in my garage.
You stuck what on?
A little tube I had, a little copper.
Like just a metal tube?
Yeah, copper tube. Piece of
Copper tube?
tubing.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Use-
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
do that.
You just stick it over that. Then if you want to get really fancy, you can solder them together. And you have
I
a-
do not want to get fancy. I'm going to find a tube though, so that I can do it from the front. That was the thing I didn't like about it, not being able to do it from the front.
Yeah, you have a longer reach on it. Now it'll cool. So, but you still have to put it in quite a ways. But with the good thing about a ProVap is that maybe we should, just before we get done here, maybe we should put up a picture of a ProVap and share it so folks can see it.
I
And
have to
it's
say
very-
also, I prefer bringing the battery than dealing with the extension cords.
I know exactly what you mean. On an out yard, you got to bring a battery.
How do we go?
Well, so it's like a generator or something to plug
You
that
can
thing
do
in?
that, right? You can do that if your club's not too cheap to buy you one. My club isn't cheap, so mine's not too cheap, so it probably could buy me. A little Honda generator would be great, so that would be wonderful. All right. So what else do we got?
I think we're caught up.
Okay, the Verox, Kevin says the Verox about $150. All right. You've seen this one. What's this?
Is this what you want to see?
Yeah, there's a ProVap 110. That's like a big deal. And then there is this cool InstaVap. I don't know about this thing. So this is InstaVap. Who makes this thing? $495. And I guess it's an 18-volt lithium-ion battery-operated vaporizer. I know nothing about the efficacy of this. Now somebody posted this in our chat.
Yeah, that was Skip.
Skip, did you use this thing?
Yeah, we have some members in our Columbia County group that use it. Two guys just bought them a couple of weeks ago, and they use them, and they say you can do almost 20 hives in 17 minutes. It's really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And expensive.
Yeah, it's like $500.
In fact, one of the guys has 3 of his old vaporizers he's selling just to get rid of them at a discount. So he got that newer one.
Yeah. So I guess, a lot of research and effort went into that little ProVap 110 to get the exact right reading. Now, with these, can you actually read a temperature off of them? Do you know?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Wow. 495 bucks. 18 seconds. Let's see. So you want to see the video?
Hi, I'm Cayman Reynolds, and in today's video, I want to talk to you about the Instant Vap, the newest vapor.
You're not sharing.
And it is.
Yeah, we don't want to see that because the guy's using it without any protection. So, you know, you can't do that. All right. So any last more practical questions about winter feed? What are you guys looking for now? We're looking to get your bees into the spring. And you might want to consider another mite control if you can manage your way through oxalic acid before everything is over. You know, or for when your colony goes broodless, then some supplement of feed, and then a midwinter inspection of some kind, you know, to see if, you know, your bees are out of whatever it is that you provided for them, and they're out of their own natural stores. Now, the good part about beekeeping and preparing your colonies in the fall that with a lot of honey is that you generally don't have to do anything in terms of emergency food during the wintertime. But we've gone away from that, and I'm not fighting it anymore. I used to say, you know, prepare your bees in the fall, and you don't have to worry about putting on, you know, feed. But that's not the way people want to take care of bees. I mean, and I don't blame them. You know, they want to put on some security blanket on top of the bees, in addition to the food that they've gathered on their own. So go ahead. You know, I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. And it works for people too. Lauren, it works for Lauren, and it works for other people, I'm sure. And it works for our friends out in California to put on supplemented food. But they don't get freezing temperatures out there a lot, though. Do you get a lot of freezing temperatures out there in California? Let's see. Did she leave us? Because Lynn, did you leave us? I don't blame you if she did. We gave her a hard time.
No, she's still there.
She's still there. Yeah, I saw it. All right. Anything else? If there's nothing else, we'll call it quits. But last minute questions. We got still everybody is here. Anything? Nothing? Going once? Going twice? Cool. So listen, thank you for coming to Bee Talks. And I hope you learned something here. We're going to do this, continue to do it. And we will be looking forward to our first live gathering this spring. In addition to, we have a great lineup of, I want to remind you that we have a great lineup of guest speakers coming up. Don't want to miss any of them because all of them will just tickle you with wonderful little tidbits about bees and beekeeping. So don't miss any of them. And anything else, Jose? Are we looking for any volunteers? We're looking for volunteers for everything.
So yeah, we're looking for volunteers for everything. We're going to be sending out a blog pretty soon asking for mentors, because after our bee school in January, we will typically get a lot of requests for mentors. And so any beekeepers who feel comfortable mentoring someone who's just getting into beekeeping really ought to volunteer. You go onto our website and there's a page where you can request to volunteer as a mentor. Go through that process. We can get your name, and when we get mentees requesting mentors, we can match you up by geographic location. So please consider doing that. And you don't have to spend oodles of hours working with someone. You can do it as much or as little as you feel comfortable. You can have one mentee if that's all you want, and that's fine. Or you can have several. We've got mentors who mentor, a half dozen mentees, and that works because you could mentor the mentees with phone calls, with visits, emails, texts. So that gives you a lot of flexibility.
And another thing I would add is if if you're hesitant to mentor somebody because you're thinking, well, I don't know enough about beekeeping, I'm struggling myself, so it's not something that I think I'm ready to do. You can tandem mentor. So what that is, you can volunteer as a mentor. And I've been supporting mentors with questions they have from their mentees, which takes the burden off of some of us who do that, because the basic questions that people feel comfortable answering, they can, and they can go and meet with folks and be sort of like a support person. And if they run into something that they don't understand, they can come back to one of us. So it's like a tiered mentor thing. So don't be afraid to mentor somebody. Anyway, it's a good way to get to know somebody in your neighborhood.
Absolutely. We're just about at the end of our session, but I can't help but be curious about Sylvia and how she did with her flow hive this year.
Oh, she's gone.
She's right there.
Sylvia,
what happened?
I couldn't get enough. One, I struggled through spring and summer, so my bees kept I got a swarm, so I never got enough of I guess the population to really be harvesting. So but I did try for like a 4-week period on one of the hives with the flow hive, and they were up there, but they didn't take, and I did wax them like crazy. So I refuse to give up those, so I am planning on trying it again next year. But I didn't harvest much honey anyways, regardless. So it was just the populations themselves.
What's your location? Because a lot of people made a lot of honey this year, and some people didn't.
So I was up over, I live over in near Kent, Connecticut. And there was a mentor, I have a mentor who comes around once in a while, and he was telling me that in general around this, like, just these hills, he was not finding a lot of people harvesting honey.
Yeah, Kent's a tough place to make honey.
I mean, yeah, he said that really all the properties, he takes care of a couple of big places around up here, and he said he was just keeping them. You know, I fed through the entire all through spring and most of summer.
Wow. Oh, that's too bad.
So
Hey, listen.
I'm not willing to say that the flow hive got its chance this year. So we'll have to try again next year.
Well, you can bring that flow hive down to the yard. We can test and see if it actually works.
Yeah, I can see Jose. We'll see. We could. I would try it out.
Yeah, you can bring it down there. We can put it on a production colony. Well, we can make up a production colony at our bee yard.
Like I said, if it doesn't work out, I plan on pouring honey down, and I'll videotape it going through the tap.
Yeah, well, make sure you wear that hat that she has on. When you put your pancakes out there,
yep.
You know, make sure you're getting honey on your pancakes.
I've seen there are some cool videos, and I refuse to just give up so easily on my little flow hive super.
I know. So a bear attacked a colony in Plainville. I went out and took it home. It's in the bee yard now, but that colony's doing well. But it had flow hive equipment, not the supers, but the boxes are a little different. They have is that right, Jose? They have a little different configuration. So Sylvia, the next time I see you, if you tell me you're coming to one of the bee yard events, I'll bring you that flow box and you can have it.
That's cool. I will, for anyone who's listening and still on and actually curious, do not spend the money on the entire flow hive. I should have, this was a gift to me, but I wouldn't spend that kind of money. If you're going to try, you just try the super, but I don't know why other than it's kind of pretty and it's got the aesthetics to it. But I actually found it's so difficult because just getting robber screens and such, it's not very accommodating.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I would not advise anyone. I would go with the Langstroth and then throw on the super.
Throw a super on top of it. A honey flow super on top. Yeah.
But it's really you can't. I'm sitting here trying to squeeze twigs and trying to, we're measuring and cutting our own little reducers because it doesn't, you either spend a ton of money going through the flow hive people, but you can't get reducers or anything to fit from Langstroth.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'll keep you posted.
It ain't over.
It ain't over. We'll first see if I can get through this winter. I have to admit, it's been a tough few months of trying to keep these hives going. So we'll see if I'm buying a nuke next year or
not
over winter. So we'll see.
All right. Cool.
Have a good day, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.